So AEW now has a little bit of a theme. The intro plays, then you get a shot of the crowd. Well, Ospreay's music hits, and out he walks. It does make sense, because every time we do this, people go crazy. Also, hello my friends, and welcome to Ups and Downs, the only wrestling review show you do need, where I, Simon Miller, give the good bits an up, and I give the bad bits a down, and you get mad at me when I give an up to something that should be a down, and vice versa. But just remember, wrestling is the most important of the least important things. There's no need to get super duper crazy about it. It makes more sense to focus on your real problems and use wrestling as a distraction. Sound good? Great. Let's go. Given Ospreay was here as well, we were going straight into William taking on Brian Cage. And of course, this is because Brian Cage is part of the Don Callis family. And last week we did Kenny Omega versus Brian Cage. But the Don Callis family keep getting involved with everything to do with Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. So hello to people on the internet like, this doesn't make any sense. It does make sense. You don't have to like it. You can think it's not very good storytelling, but it is still storytelling. So when you say it makes no sense, you sound stupid. Now, Callis made sure to grab a microphone before this match even began. He's like, Will, look at that big screen. I was like, Don, I don't think you have to say that. The screen is massive. He'd be able to see it. But on it, Kenny Omega had just been killed. When I kid you not, Don Callis went, ha 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 ha, like he was some kind of supervillain. I mean, why is this man allowed to go to ringside? It didn't work at all either because it was an awful distraction, because Brian went for the bomb of power and Ospreay went, nope. He gave him a Hurricane Rana instead. He also tried to dive, which was a terrible idea because Cage smashed him with a lariat. And then once again, Will Ospreay was bopping and brapping around the place. Brian caught him and basically held him in a suplex position for around about 57 years. And in fact, if you are in the future right now and you're watching this YouTube video, look out your window, I bet he's still doing it. Lance Archer was out there as well, so of course he charged up his MP and he used distraction. And that is when Brian Cage went backbreaker crazy. It was like 1 backbreaker, 2 backbreaker, 3 backbreaker more. Will Ospreay, can you come back? What is the flipping law? That's the stupidest thing I've ever said. Ospreay was able to get out of this by kicking him in the head when he hit the cheeky Nando's kick, and he followed that with the pip pip cheerio for the 1-2 ooh. So now we've got to do it again. Pip pip cheerio, 1-2 ooh, somebody shoot me in the face. 1 billion YouTube views. Damn it. Archer must have then shown that video to the referee because that guy was all distracted again, which is when Brian Cage continued to kill this guy. And look, he even hit the F5 at one point, but Will Ospreay only got out of it because he put his foot on the rope. Now Lance was like, nope, and he pushed his toes back to the mat. But he did this right in front of the referee. Lance, what are you doing? Now this created some space, and during that, Ospreay must have taken his med back, because when Brian went to get him, he was basically able to throw the two big men into each other. They couldn't believe it, I suppose, because they've never touched skin with somebody they consider a friend, when Will Ospreay was like, fine. And he hit the Stars Clash onto Brian Cage. And not only did he get a 1-2-3 to basically establish that as a new finisher, Brian Cage is massive, man. Look, both impressive and terrifying. Of course, the family jumped Will Ospreay after this when Kenny Omega and Charlie the Chair made the save. But because we were focusing on Lance Archer and Brian Cage, because they've got muscles, here was Carl Fletcher and Takeshita. Like usual, they just beat everybody up. They're also going after Kenny's tum-tum, because that's where his injury is, when William decided, you are now my best friend, and he actually climbed on top of Omega. He didn't want his tummy to suffer any more injuries. It was a bit like, wow, this friendship really has ramped up, but I suppose when you have an enemy, you have to make friends of your current enemies. It's a tale as old as time itself. It's basically telling you as well that come Grand Slam, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay are probably going to win this match, so let's make sure we give the heels as much as possible. It would be nice if maybe we got a few less beatdowns on AEW, especially because it's always the baby faces getting killed. Eventually, you just start to feel a little bit sad. Also still have this feeling in my Tootsie Toes that Will and Kenny need to kind of been thrown to the top of the singles division because they are mega stars. But listen, I watched wrestling to be entertained, and I was very entertained by all of this. I think Brian Cage did a very good showing these past 2 weeks. Giving it up. Hangman Adam Page was then in the back and he was looking for Swerve Strickland, and when Renee Paquette was like, what are you doing, cowboy? He basically mentioned this, but his voice was a little bit softer than usual. I'm like, are you going to apologize to Swerve? Because if so, he better not accept you tried to kill him. Eventually he bumped into MJF as well, and he did this literally because he barged past him, when Max was like, well, that guy is just an absolute goober. So once again, we're teasing that feud. He also talked about the fact that Claudio Castagnoli will be taking on Jeff Jarrett later. He was like, Jeff, you're about to realize you made a terrible, terrible mistake. He also called Claudio half man, half horse, and my nerd side kicked in. I'm like, man, that has got to be a niche reference to an old Kevin Steen shoot video. We are not in Kansas anymore, Toto. We also cut to Powerhouse Hobbs after this, who told us, man, I'm not allowed to be on Dynamite because I wasn't cleared to travel. Damn it. He also promised when he did return he would absolutely wreck Big Bill because these two had clashed through some tables on AEW Collision. When Excalibur basically told us, yeah, the reason Powerhouse isn't allowed here because somebody hit him with a brick. Now, so many people have been getting hit with bricks in wrestling recently. And do not forget, as it is Powerhouse William Hobbs taking on Big Bill, this is basically Bill versus Bill. There was a small part of me that was like, man, we should have put Hobbs on this show anyway and sold him like a monster. He can be hit with concrete, but he's still totally fine. I am looking forward to this though because I think they are a good pairing and both should get pushes in 2025. When it was indeed time for Claudio Castagnoli taking on Jeff Jarrett. Now at first, Jarrett was actually able to out-wrestle Claudio, I guess because he's got experience, when he was like, I'm going to apply the figure four. It's like, Double J, what are you doing? You have been around for a long time. This is way too early. Claudio's meter is basically still going to be full. Wheeler Yuta then walked out. I can't lie, I did face palm just a little bit. But you know the deal, it is a Death Riders match. During a Death Riders match, 642 people have to walk out. Claudio then got his Sagat uppercut in when Jarrett came back with his punches. As he started to go after Claudio's leg, this actually worked, because when Castagnoli went for the big swing, he couldn't do it. He's got a wounded knee. It also meant he's now an injured horse. This is when Wheeler just went, and he slid a chair into the ring. The ref was like, you shouldn't be sliding chairs into the ring. And even though Claudio did swing this thing, actually, he totally missed. Jarrett was then going to go for the stroke, but of course, this is when John Moxley teleported in from the Starship Enterprise. He laid out Double J with the paradigm shift. Now, Castagnoli was so enraged by this, he was like, I'm going to kill you, Jeff Jarrett. And he hit him with around about 42 neutralizers. And of course, as the name suggests, Jeff was neutralized. 1, 2, 3. Mox, Claudio, and Marina Shafir then looked on at their destruction. They went, ha, they did walk away. And of course, as soon as they had left, here came MJF. Now, he pretended he was going to talk to Jeff Jarrett, but he didn't, and he took the diamond ring, and he smashed him right in the face. You'd have to imagine come the next pay-per-view, we're going to be doing that match. I've told you before, I don't mind, man. Wrestling never leaves my TV. Give me as many fresh matches as you can. However, when I do take this thing overall, I have to go back to Natalie Imbruglia because I am torn. And while I understand this is just what the Death Riders do, I don't actually think they needed to get involved in this match. Now, for starters, it has kind of fallen into a pattern which you never want, but also, I just think there was a much better story of Jeff Jarrett coming so close and giving you all that he's got and using up all his HP and all his MP when Claudio was like, you can't do this, old man. I'm in my prime and you're not. And then he can hit him with a move and he can beat him. And along the way, Jeff can have a bunch of 1-2-oohs to the point we're sweating. It's as though this just kind of fell into all the other stuff that we had seen before. And it kind of lacked impact because, again, if I punch myself in the face, you'd be like, well, that's really weird. But if I just stand here and punch myself over and over again for the next 42 videos, eventually you push play and you go, oh, I bet that bald idiot's still punching himself in the face. I'd like to stop now. So it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoyed seeing Claudio versus Jeff for all the reasons I have outlined. But overall, I do just have to give it a down. I just think we have to bring something new to the Riders of Death. It's not just the running in and then yes, we're gonna run in. It also just feels like at one point there was gonna be this big reveal, and now that hasn't been a big reveal. It doesn't have to be Shane McMahon, which was the idea all those months ago. We shall have to wait and see. Renee was then chatting to that criminal Ricochet, who does just walk around with scissors, and she told him, oh, hi, Ricochet. Tony Khan has just told me that you are taking on AR Fox tonight, and Swerve Strickland isn't allowed to interfere, otherwise the Swerve Ricochet match next week is off. Now, of course, Ricky was really happy about this, but my hand went up. I was like, man, that doesn't seem fair, because you, Ricochet, you did interfere in Swerve's match last week. Kind of felt like turnaround would be fair play. I also do hope that Ricochet does go super nuts soon, because while I understand he's being a bit of a coward, I much prefer when he does go full off the rails, as we will talk about in just 1 second. Because yes, it was Ricochet versus AR Fox after 7 days ago, it being AR Fox versus Swerve, And listen, I understand some people are, oh, what's going on here? I can't help it. I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, I watch all professional wrestling, and all of this has just been a love letter to Lucha Underground. Sorry, I tried, watch. I can't get mad at it. We also got a bunch of dives as people start to be held into the ring apron, which is the hardest part of the ring. When we found out that Ricochet is learning that to be an asshole you have to piss off the fans, because he pretended he was going to do a dive and he went, ha ha, I'm not actually going to do it. Now, to be fair, that is a little bit like your stepdad telling you he's not going to buy you anything for Christmas when your real dad buys you a PS5. I've already got a PlayStation 5, bro. You can't affect me. And by this stage in my wrestling watching, I'd seen around about 4,000 dives. Rick then hit his people's moonsault as they came crashing together with double cross bodies. Actually, that has been happening a lot recently. Fox then hit this awesome DDT for a 1-2-ooh, and when he followed up with this 450 and got another one, I was like, yes, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it had absolutely no jeopardy, because Fox was never going to win, but isn't it just amazing that he left the animal kingdom to become a wrestler? I think it is. He was going to finish him off as well, when of course Ricochet was like, oh yes, I am a dickhead, and he quite literally grabbed the referee to get out of a move. Listen, I'm going to be a tiny bit of a pedant here. Should probably be disqualification. It wasn't though, when he was able to boot AR Fox before he hit him with the spirit gun. That's it is his finishing move. He was finished. 1, 2, 3. So once again, I do understand that Ricky is a heel, but I think we should leave these shenanigans to one side and just let him go a little bit insane. I do remember when he turned up as the 1970 Hitman and did stab Swerve right in the face. I was like, oh man, this dude's gone crazy. He also did grab his new favorite weapon after this, which was Sarah the Scissors, so we have to whack a 1 off the crime counter. I mean, he never got to use them, but I don't think people are picking up scissors with good intentions. Unless, of course, you're a barber. Swerve then realised, wait a minute, the match is over, so I can go out there, and he did run down to make the save, and he was whipping Ricochet's ass. But when he was going for the Swerve stomp, Rick became a kidnapper, because he got the scissors, and he held them to AR Fox's neck, so he was able to get out of there. So once again, put a 1 on the crime counter. I'm pretty sure that's about 3 simultaneous crimes. As soon as he had the freedom as well, he just threw AR Fox away, because again, he was just using this to have a clear getaway. And this is the stuff I want to lean into more. I really like the fact that Ricochet has totally changed his character since coming to AEW. But I think we can push it further. AEW has also done something right here, because the match is next week, and man, if you put a gun to my head, which Ricochet probably would do, he's crazy with crimes, I don't think I'd be able to call it. That means it has a secret sauce, that means it has jeopardy. So we shall wait and see, and I hope there is an interesting twist to take us to whatever is the week after that. But I like it. When we actually did get a really important answer to a question we have been asking, why the flub do the Death Riders keep the AEW World title in a case? Moxie said this to Rennie Paquette as well, which is interesting in the real world. And Mox was like, why would I get it out? This ain't a zoo. Do you want to take a picture? I was like, listen, man, if you put the world title around an elephant, you bet your ass I would take a pic. That is his whole point, though, is that you don't have this championship so you can show it off and act like it's a, ha ha, look what I have got. It's something that's in your heart, and it's something that you feel. This is why his whole plan is about building an army of John Moxley so they can understand what championship means, and only then can we all march forward to the promised land. I don't know what he's talking about, you tell me. So genuinely I did appreciate the answer, but it does go back to what we were talking about earlier. I need less of these poems, and I need some meat that I can eat for lunch. So that means, hopefully you take my point, I just need to be able to see it with my eyes. Chris Jericho was next, and I think he was doing another New York Minute, even though we were in Huntsville. He spoke about his new movie too, as he also admitted that he's proud of Big Bill for taking his advice and using it, and Big Bill was proud too, and he also turned around and said, well, actually, you haven't killed Powerhouse Will Hobbs, so make that happen. We also learned that it is going to be Brian Keith and Chris Jericho taking out the Outrunners on Collision. This is when Jericho was like, listen, Outrunners, you say you've been around for years, but I don't think that's true. When Brian Keith blamed it on the Mandela effect. This was totally brilliant. There's Taz as well, as he pointed out that lasted way more than a minute. I'm actually quite excited for this, mostly because don't forget, in 2025, I am trying to manifest being the 3rd Outrunner, or the 4th Outrunner. Now, I don't know how I'm going to achieve that, but between all of us, let us believe. When Jay White finally defeated Wheeler Yuta, I mean, thank goodness for that. That guy's been like a fly, bzz, bzz, bzz. Been really annoying. Fans were also super behind Jay White, so that's worked. And this Wheeler is such an idiot. He tried to attack before the bell. I tell you, that did not go well for him. Because I tell you, not only did Jay grab him by the beard, but at one point he used the ropes and he whammed Wheels right in the penis. That guy's having a bad 2025. Now, Wheeler was able to get back into this because he did go after the knee, and he even used the ring apron. When we got back into the squared circle, and he hit a fisherman suplex for a 1-2. Ooh, I was like, Yuka, what are you doing? You worked on the leg, focus on the leg. Jay was then able to shake his limb, and in Wrestling Magical Land, that allows you to be 100% better when he was able to get the superplex. That didn't work either, because Wheels went right into the Boston Crab. That guy is most definitely not from Boston. It didn't bother Jay at all because he hit this really cool Uranagi when he was going for the Blade Runner. But that's when somebody must have played the shenanigan flute, whatever that is, because here came the shenanigans. Because Wheeler Yuta had that skeleton, he went for the most devastating move in all of sports, and surprise roll-up, but he got a 1-2 when he tried the German suplex, and he ran at Jay White. Jay was like, no, I'm a super over babyface right now, you don't get to do this to me, and he caught him in the Blade Runner, 1-2-3. Now look, I like this match, and I'm going to give it an up, because as we talked about, it's just so pleasant to see a good guy win. But then all the Death Runners ran out, and yeah, we've also talked about that too. They totally screwed up Jay White before FTR and Adam Copeland, or Rated FTR, came to the ring. It's a bit like, well, where were you earlier? And Dax Harwood got on the microphone, he said, you guys tried to kill Ricky Morton, and he was my childhood hero. And all of that is true. This went from nowhere. He revealed that on Collision, it is going to be a Mid-South street fight, I believe they call it. And look, there's no way that's going to be bad. And in fact, you should probably go out of your way to watch it. But I just do not understand why Rated FTR are going, oh, hey, Riders of Death, you have those trios championships and we want them. Now, I've said that out loud, and I have to check myself. Do they have the trios titles? I don't know, because the trios titles have fallen into the Phantom Zone. I mean, to me, that just feels like the most obvious thing to do. And if we had built this like a little bit differently, it could have been the Mid-South street fight that ended all of this, meaning come Collision, you would have Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, and the coach standing there with that belts. And I dare believe that would make you feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum. So it's totally fine, but if that's not going to happen, then I think we should move FTR back into the tag team scene, because they're one of the best tag teams on the planet, which is also something that made me go, oh man, because we did get a Hurt Syndicate video later, and they're like, oh man, Private Party did a good job, but you ain't us, and we'll beat everybody up. But I wanted something more than that too. In fact, I wanted to come to the ring, and I wanted them to start another feud, because right now, they're on fire. So I kind of just feel like both of these championships right now aren't where they need to be. When I run my head around that, it does have to get it down. Now you can fix this in about a week. Once again, that's just how I feel, and I can't ignore my feelings. I'm a very modern man. When we got the big old video replaying us everything from Collision, when it was revealed Timeless Tony Storm is back. If you haven't seen that, it's all over social media. You should watch it. Very good. Also, a quick shout out to the crazies who on one hand are all like, oh man, AEW Collision needs more stuff. And then we did this on Collision, they were like, oh man, we should have done this on Dynamite. Kind of think like you need to pick a lane, otherwise you're just mad about everything. Ryan May made sure to follow this up too, as she did come out to cut a promo. And she actually said, we're in Huntsville, but looking at you, maybe we should get rid of the H and change it to a C, which means she meant cut. Let's hope we bleep that out. She then freaked out about the fact that Timeless Tony Storm is back, and she told Renee to get out of there. When she was like, Storm, you can play whatever role you want. Maybe you should play the role when someone manipulates you and steals your title. Obviously, she was referring to herself. She can also play the role when she runs away from Mexico and Japan and eventually winds up in AEW, which was also a shot at Tony Storm. But here's the deal when we do break it down. I'm the woman from hell. Somebody needs to investigate that. No matter what you bring, I will beat you again, and I will still be the champ. So I thought this was a good promo, and again, the way this has been worked over the last few days has made me very excited for that match. It is going to be in Australia, and obviously Tony Storm is from Australia, so just let her win the title back. That's good old-fashioned wrestling. However, I do have to say I was genuinely sad that Timeless Tony Storm didn't come out here, because of course we got the first tease on Collision, or we pulled the trigger, but I thought we should have done the entrance here. Sometimes there's no need to stand on ceremony, Mr. Wayne. Just give me the shib that I want. Also, just make sure you have this big 1-2 punch when you tell the audience, oh hi, we did just do this big thing on Collision. So make sure you stop by on Dynamite and we'll give you a little bit more. So once again, I'm sure I'm being a bit of a nerd and a bit of a pedant here. But that's what I thought. I can't help my thoughts. It's a real problem. Somebody please help me. Down. We then got a big pop out of me next. We got a video saying the Guns are returning. I tell you, my friends, I've missed them. I think they're great. We've also got a bunch of matches that are happening next week and one on Collision, which is indeed going to be Kyle O'Reilly versus Lee Moriarty versus Danny Garcia for the TNT title. And once again, if you have been watching at the weekends, you know this has been a bit of a story, but it also hit me hard right in my bald head, and I said, this is another title I think we need to do more with. Because a couple of years ago, this TNT Championship felt like such a feather in AEW's cap, and even if they did want to make it exclusive to Collision, which I wouldn't mind, well, you then ask, well, where's the International Championship and where's the Continental one? Haven't seen a Carter in a week or so, or a while if it comes to Dynamite, and while we did have a video for Takeshita later, it was just a video, meaning none of these champions actually appeared on the Stroll live and in person. Once again, I do think you need to have a balance between Collision and Dynamite. This TNT title just needs something. I don't know what it is. Once again, I just thought, man, it's a bit sad, especially because these three people are fighting for it, and they're super duper whooper good. Just need something more. Maybe need to supersize it. It's a down. The good news is Taya Valkyria and Deonna Purrazzo were here, and they were like, oh man, we have been running wild on Collision. That's why maybe we shall turn up on Dynamite and whoop Mercedes Moné's ass. You want to do Deonna versus Mercedes? This guy's alright with it. Speaking of Mercedes as well, we then did get our main event where she was defending her TBS title. She was challenging Yuka Sakazaki. I have no issue with this ever either because again, we have 52 weeks of programming in a year, so there has to be some room for main events like this. Otherwise, what the flub are we doing? I do have to admit, though, the build left me wanting something a little bit more, because while Yuka did win a 4-way on Saturday, so once again, we are connecting the shows, and I appreciate that, I just feel like if we'd given it a few more weeks, maybe we would have even gone to this evening, and I'd have been like, oh man, given what I have seen, maybe Mercedes Moné is gonna lose. But as it was, I sat there going, I can't buy any of these 1-2-oohs, it's most definitely not gonna happen. In fact, it'd be 2 + 2 = potato. Wouldn't make any sense. And that is something that all wrestling needs to be aware of right now. Kind of feels like we're leaning too much into it. Do have to give it a damn. Again, though, in terms of the wrestling itself, it was so damn fun to watch. Especially, whoever thought we'd get this kind of main event on weekly mainstream American TV? Fans were totally into it too when Mercedes did a tackle and then did her dance. But how many times have I told you, you're not allowed to pose? Because Yuka then came back, she hit a tackle, and she did the dance too. That is not Mercedes Moné's dance. Something like that. I actually can't remember. She just wiggles. They then hit the go button and they were going back and forth when Yuka was able to hit this baseball slide and she just booted Mercedes right in the face. Sakazaki also went for a dive, but Mercedes just got out the way when she came back with a Meteora. That's when I just got comfortable, man, because they were cooking. Yuka then reversed the Hurricane Rana into a bomb of power, which everybody seems to be doing these days. When we got a brain buster, we got the three amigos, and Mercedes took a little bit too long. We finished it off with a superplex. She tried for the money maker, but Sakazaki was like no and booted her once again when Mercedes came back with the backstabber and she locked in the statement maker, whatever the flub we're calling it. Which is when Yuka rolled into the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. And again, maybe if we had just sold this a little differently, I would have bit on that one. Instead, I was like, well, nope, that's not gonna work. Didn't. So that happened again because Sakazaki hit this elbow for another 1-2-ooh when she went for her magical girl splash. I know I say this every time, but it's just the best name ever for a move. It sounds like some kind of thing you'd bust out in an RPG, but Moné must have been playing that game. She got the knees up. She then absolutely killed her with a bomb of power when she got the Moné maker and got the 1-2-3. She is still your TBS champion. This was a good match. Give it up. It didn't mean that Dynamite this week kind of just ended, but again, a championship was on the line, which ties into that down I gave it earlier. If you are going to finish a show off like this, I just think you have to put your best foot forward. And instead, we basically did a feud in like 4 days. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. But again, I thought it was an okay episode of AEW. I certainly was never bored. Actually, it's the #1 thing I look for when I am trying to be entertained. Giving it up. Now, of course, please do click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs from Monday Night Raw, to get all my opinions on all the wrestling promotions. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Leave me a comment telling me when I'm right and when I'm wrong. I need to know these things. Otherwise, I get hit by a car when I am crossing the road. Otherwise, I appreciate you, my friends. See you soon.